Yo, listen to this. This how we do. It's the throwback mix. Check it. Forgive me, I'm a loose cannon. Diablo on the cop scanners. She gave me loving cause my nice manners. Yeah, making moves like a city planner. Forgive me, I'm a loose cannon. Take a picture, try to keep it candid. Me and my mans, we was all bandits. Keep it fresh, yeah, we never ransom. Yeah, loosen up, I've been too tight. Hold me, mama, make it alright. It's in my nature, the perfect picture. Total
what up, what up?
Like an apple, it's magical.
There we go, we're gonna jump right into it, fam. We got Tyler on the line. Got a great episode for you, I hope you enjoy.
I traumatize you, I harmonize you, but I never will despise you. I'm maniacal. They always said my raps were undeniable.
A little morning Swole here.
With a pencil that's mechanical. We chillin' down on Rosecrans Avenue. Then we take it straight back to Lake Havasu. Give me bubbly.
All right, fam, here we go. Let's get ready for the Daily Mother. Swole. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
You know that I don't like you anymore. I know that I've been spiteful in the wrong.
Bam. $9.95. Here we go. $9.95. No coffee.
The sun is shining.
No coffee,
The
make me
birds
angry.
are chirping. The bacon is sizzling. Welcome to the Daily Swole.
Testing. Testicles. Oh, welcome everyone to episode 995 of the Daily Mother Swole, the most muscular Swolecast, Beercast, Broadcast, Gamecast, Mancast, Pimpcast, and Sleazecast, and Conversation Interview Cast today. In the realm, because when I flex, you flex, we all flex our biceps. Welcome everyone to episode 995 of the Daily Sleaze. I hope you are having a wonderful Saturday. It's cold as fuck down here in Florida. It's rainy, it's nasty, it's gray. But we are here and we are ready to slay. So make sure you drop some biceps, drop some gorillas in the comments, say what up, and let's have a nice warm welcome to Tyler Kuhl. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Am I, brother?
Yeah, that's right.
Is it Kuhl or Kuhl? I like Kuhl. Kuhl is better than Kuhl. I think Kuhl is badass. It's like, my name's Tyler Kuhl. I feel like that's like a 50s name. You just gotta take off some black sunglasses and be like, my name's Kuhl, Tyler Kuhl. Anyway, that was lame, but we are here and we are interested in your story. So I know we were talking for a few minutes before we went we went live, and I want you to just take a couple moments, introduce yourself to the larger Swolenormous nation, and we'll just jump right into it. Tell us a little bit of your background, a couple things that you were talking about before, and we'll just jump right in.
All right. Like I said, my name's Tyler Kuhl. I'm 26 years old, and I live in Iowa. My journey kind of really started in kind of high school. That's when I first started athletics and sports and stuff like that. And I had a lot of knee issues all throughout high school, shoulder issues. And it actually took until at the end of high school where I finally got surgery done on both knees and shoulder and everything else. And I pretty much just sat stagnant since then. I got up to my biggest weight. I was up to about 280 at that point.
How tall are you, brother?
About 6 foot.
Okay. So you're a big dude. You're a big dude at 280.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So, what's that?
No, you're all good. I was saying you're a big dude. 6 foot 280 is you were a big guy.
Yeah, and it took on quick, with just sitting around. So after it took a while, I finally was like, okay, I got to get this off. So I just kind of went the traditional route, cardio every day, barely eating anything, and I got down to 215 in about a summer. But I was, super weak. I mean, it wasn't exactly what I was wanting. The weight was off, but I wasn't exactly where I wanted to be. I ended up getting a job in more of an active field in construction. So I thought, well, I don't have to work out as much. I have an active job. and the weight slowly started kind of coming back on again. I got up to about 260 before I found Swolenormous, and now I'm down to currently 238 with almost zero pain from what I used to experience at all times.
So where did your pains come from? I'm not sure if you just briefly touched upon that, but you played football, right?
Well, what I was told from the doctors as far as like my knees and stuff, they told me that the kneecaps were actually on the outside of the groove that they're supposed to be sitting in.
Yep.
So they said if I would have never done anything, I may have never noticed it as much. But after, doing sports and everything else, it's pretty much grinded away, everything that was there.
So you had a misalignment, so to speak, with a patellar groove, like before you even played sports, like a genetic thing?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it just exacerbated it from playing sports. So what were your diagnosed injuries? What did they say you had as a result of, the grinding? Did they give you
other than my knees or
just in general, like what was your diagnosis if they gave you one?
Well, they pretty much, they attempted everything they could before they actually went through and did surgery.
Okay.
I did some, they tried physical therapy, they tried shots, they tried cortisone. None of it was it was just a very temporary fix. It just seemed to never stick until they eventually had to go in and cut tension on the tendons to move them back to center.
Ooh. So what was your recovery period like? You did therapy, you did all that stuff after the surgery, I'm sure, right?
I would say it was probably before I was actually active again, like actually doing something or attempting it. I'm going to say it was probably close to a year and a half before I was up trying to get back into, physical activity, stuff like that.
And how old were you then? How old were you right after the surgery? What was that?
It would have been, I was about 18, 19 years old. So after recovering everything, I was probably, early 20s.
Damn. So that's real young to start going in there with a knife and to have those kinds of problems. So that's like that's a rough start, man. I mean, you have people that are gaining weight and being overweight and having injuries from accumulated, but a lot of times what we talk about here on the podcast are those initial injuries from youth sports and just from activity. People just deal with it. I mean, how did you deal with your injury? How did you because I know it's not, you don't snap your fingers. Oh, I have pain. Oh, I went to the doctor. Oh, I got surgery. It's a whole process of going through that frustration. It doesn't go away. It lingers. I mean, what was the time frame in terms of like beginning to end, and what did you try to do to kind of work around it, or did that not happen? Did you just go right into surgery?
Because what's kind of crazy is at the beginning is like even in high school, like that's just kind of what I was known for. He's the one with the bad knees. He's got to, he pushes hard and stuff, but I'd have to take days off and stuff during practices because I couldn't take the pain. I mean, sometimes it was a pain just walking upstairs in the morning. But we tried all this stuff, and yeah, it was temporary, and it would just get frustrating because it seemed like I was always going back. Like I'd start progressing a little bit, and then I would revert back, and it was really hard to push myself, I guess, in a sense, because it's like I'm just waiting for the next injury at this point. And so I would say after the surgeries and stuff, I kind of went through a period of just nothing, I guess, almost giving up at the point where it's not even worth trying, because I just, I was still, they felt a little better, but everything was still weak. I was pretty weak from the point, and I've already gotten so big at this point. Everything was that much harder.
So is that when you got up to 280 pounds?
Yes.
That was
right after the surgeries.
And that's right after the surgery. So now you have extra weight on top of newly quote unquote fixed knees. So did you still have pain after the surgery because of the weight?
Yeah. I mean, they were a little, they were better, and I knew I was kind of in the recovery stage at that point. So that was the point, was to try to get them better. But there was still a lot of pain. I mean, it still was very hard to, just do a lot of things without it hurting, just basic functions, even little squats, stuff like that would just cause pain. So there, one time it was a summer, I was just like, I got to do something. I got to start something. So I started with just kind of walking every morning. I'd get up at like 5:30 every morning, and I just slowly kind of progressed it to like, jogging, running, and just try to, and it was just cardio. I mean, that's all I was doing. I didn't really know a whole lot at that point. I needed to do something. I knew.
Did you have any guidance from a physical therapist or from the doctor after you had the surgery? Like, do these exercises? Did you go through any kind of period where they were helping you with your hips and with your glutes and the stuff that obviously you're aware of now?
Now, I mean, I had to go to physical therapy, but just like, some stuff we discussed about before, with insurance and stuff like that,
Yeah.
You can go there for so many times and then you're done. They give you a little sheet of some stuff to do, and that's about it. So I definitely had some stuff with that. I guess I never noticed any true differences with a lot of it.
Well, of course not, because they had you went in probably for 4 to 6 weeks or whatever that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, whatever the insurance allowed. They probably did the heat, they did the ice, they did some massage, you did some like leg extensions or some basic stuff with like a band probably. And then they might have given you a little packet of do these exercises, do a couple of these things for the next 4 to 6 weeks, do these 3 times a week, and you nod your head and say, okay, but there's no guidance. There's no real progression. There's no real help with that. I mean, that's one of the problems with the sick care system is that they're trying to kind of run you through the mill. They got your money, they got the insurance money from the surgery. The therapy is kind of like, hey, pat you on the back. Let's kind of get you better, but it certainly doesn't take you through. So what happened after the surgery? Where after that point where you're doing the physical therapy, you had your surgery, you started doing your cardio, what took place from then, and what was the time period from then until now? Let's talk about that period after you had your issues, because a lot of people are going to be able to relate to this. It doesn't really matter what time of life you have this. When you have an injury, you have that post-injury kind of low mood where you're, I wouldn't say depressed, but should I even start? This isn't worth it. Oh, I lost so much. There's a lot of psychological, and maybe you can talk about that for a moment first. The psychological component of being injured or having that little lull after a surgery, it can be really overbearing and just, I guess you just don't have the confidence necessarily to go through it all again. But I mean, you started with the cardio, but where was your mindset at? What were you thinking about when you started your, getting back up on your feet, so to speak?
I mean, I think that's one of the hardest parts is the mental portion of it. It was very hard just to even get myself to that point. Cause I just, and I was so young at the time and everything else. And you almost start thinking, well, this is it. Like, this is just what I have to deal with. And I think that was one of the hardest things to get over was, there is other options. There is ways to kind of get through this. There is, there's got to be something. This doesn't have to be forever. There's so many different things out there. And I think when I did start with like the running and that kind of stuff, it was just to the point where I was just, you step on that scale and it's like, it was almost like a sticker shock. Like I couldn't do it anymore. And you don't really notice it, I would say, you're not paying attention to it all the time. It shows up out of nowhere, and before you know it, here it is, another 40, 50 pounds, on. So I think
the knees are such, I mean, I always talk about here on the podcast, the hips are the king of the jungle. If something's not aligned, something's not right, it's the hips, but your hips are above your knees. I mean, that's part of what keeps you vertical. It keeps you away from the earth, and all your body weight is going through your knees. So it's when you have an injury, when you have pain, even tendonitis, let alone surgery, and let alone what you went through, it's not like you have pain once in a while when you move your shoulder. Whether you're sitting or standing or walking or doing anything, your knees are involved. So it's a constant reminder. And if it's uncomfortable, it's a constant discomfort, a constant pain, which you well know. So yeah, take us from that point and what you started with after the cardio. So you saw the numbers going up. You saw that kind of trickling. You had that shock where you looked and that number can't be right. That must be a 3, not an 8. What happened after that? Where are we going there?
Okay, so I mean, after it was, and like I said, it was about 3 months.
Okay.
All of a sudden, I got down to about 215.
From 280, you went down 65 pounds.
Yes.
Badass. Awesome, man.
What's that?
I said awesome. That 65 pounds in how long?
It was about 3.5, 4 months.
Damn, that's a lot of weight loss. That's fast too.
Well, and I think that was a lot of the issue because, like I said, I was doing cardio, but I I mean, I was eating like a bird. Like I was essentially starving myself.
Right.
And after I got down to that weight, I mean, granted, I started feeling a little bit better. I mean, I was to the point where I could run, for a decent amount of distance, which felt better because it was something I could never really do before, with my knee pain and everything else. But I did start, like I said, I started a job that was more labor intensive. And that was kind of when I started realizing, okay, I lost a lot of weight, but now I'm like super weak. Like just simple tasks seemed way harder than they should have been.
Mm-hmm. So what were you eating? When you were eating like a bird, what were you doing? Did you follow any kind of plan, or were you just like literally just doing the whole like salad and chicken type of thing?
I wasn't really following a plan per se. It was more of just along the lines of that I was just eating, I'd have a handful of like almonds or something or trail mix in the morning, and then some fruit after I'd run, and then that was really not much else. I mean, I'd have some chicken and I was just eating very, very minimal of everything I was eating.
Okay. So just super grazing, just picking just very, very low calories. So you're going to bonk out, you're going to crash hard when you do that for a long period of time. So, all right. So and it's funny because that's what I did. Actually, I did not to that level, but when I went to college, when I was, all right, I'm going to get lean or I'm going to bulk. I'm just going to start getting really into fitness because all of a sudden I had the gym right near my dorm, and I really fell in love with fitness from that transition from high school to college. And that first year I was doing tons of cardio. It's so funny, man. I was doing tons of cardio, and I was eating like literally doing everything wrong. I was eating a lot of salads and chicken, and I got really, when I look back on it, I thought I was ripped. I was just skinny, really. I was skinny. I had muscle, but I was fighting all this exercise and this activity like you were with not enough calories and not the right foods. So take us from that point to now.
So at this point, like I said, I started a little bit more labor intensive job. And I think mentally I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe I don't have to get up every morning at 5 and do this, cardio thing now. So, I have something that's keeping me active, I should be fine. So that I kind of fell off at that point, and slowly the weight started creeping back up again. And I mean, through all this time, I'm still dealing with knee pain. There's still certain things that bother me. I can't do, it's a daily kind of issue.
Mm-hmm.
So then once again, I kind of hop on the scale one day and realize, okay, well, I'm starting to put everything back on. And from then I actually, asked a friend of mine who was doing some bodybuilding stuff for some help. And so because I knew I wanted to start getting back into the gym. I wanted to start doing more of the lifting thing. So I kind of started with that and got a program from him and kind of got going. The diet was just rice, chicken, peanut butter, all of the above.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, lifting 4 or 5 days a week, but there was, cardio involved in after every workout. And I started losing the weight again, but I noticed certain things like squatting and all that kind of stuff I still couldn't do. I could barely go a quarter of the way down. It still hurt. There's still a lot of pain there. Everything was really tight. But I mean, like I started losing the weight. I mean, I started dropping pounds. I've seen differences. But I noticed as well, it wasn't exactly the physique I was looking for still. I was losing weight, but I just wasn't getting the shape I was wanting. I wasn't getting all the results I was truly looking for. And then, so once again, fell off that wagon, started creeping up again. And that's kind of when, up to that point is now when I found Swole.
And when was that? What was the date on that?
I just checked the other day. I know, what was it? I joined the actual program in May, I believe.
I mean, I could look, those are just details, but because a lot of people this is going to resonate. This story it sounds like so many stories in the sense that you have this struggle. You're fed up with it, or you have this ability to change, right? You had your surgery, you had this issue that I had since I was little has gotten fixed. But then you have this kind of psychological tug of war because you're going on this roller coaster. If you would agree on that, you're going up in weight. So then you have this mental shift, and then you lose some weight, but it's not the right type of weight. I mean, because when we look at 65 pounds, that's a shitload of weight. Okay. And that's a short period of time. Obviously you weren't doing it perfectly correct, which is understandable. I haven't done everything perfectly correct with fitness in my life either, but you've gone through this kind of up and down tug of war, doing things like you'll see the results, you'll see the number dropping, but like inside, it's not right. It's not the healthy way. It doesn't feel like you would expect it. A lot of people have this. A lot of people have this tug of war, this up and down, and a lot of people give up. How did you deal with those moments? And I'm talking about maybe the individual, the micro moments, maybe like those days. I'm sure a couple, or maybe at least one, stands out to you that you were either you did quit or you were really on that brink. Does any like moment stand out in particular when you were just, this is not worth it, maybe it's not for me, fuck this, whatever?
I mean, I'm sure there's definitely been ups and downs with it along the way. I mean, I think my biggest issue was I was always looking for that quick fix. I'm always wanting something that works now. I want to get this done in a month or 2 months, or, my goal is to have it done by this time or whatever. And I think that's where a lot of the up and down came from, because it's like, okay, I have this goal, I didn't hit it, okay, this isn't working, and then it would just kind of go down the hill from there. And there was plenty of times where I was just like, well, I mean, maybe if I try this, maybe this will work, because this isn't, or I think I'm just always been trying to find something that I can stick with, I enjoy doing, I can see the results. And I don't know, it was hard, because I mean, I feel like once I'd fall off, then it would be months before I would even, try it again. I could see myself not going to the gym as much, and then I would just slowly start making excuses to skip, and then before you know it, I'm not going at all again.
Yeah.
And I noticed that trend quite a bit throughout my journey, and honestly, I don't know what it was.
Well,
What's that?
No, I was gonna say a lot of people give up well before that. They don't necessarily do the up and down, but it's really something strong to look back on in terms of your perspective, where you are now, because you'll recognize those patterns. I think it's in some way you can use that. I guess in any way you can use that as a positive, because once you've gone through that pattern, was there a point where you just started recognizing it while you were in it? You recognize that up and down. You're like, oh, I've been here before.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's almost the most frustrating thing is like, I know what I'm doing. I know that I need to be doing this. I know that I'm not doing this, but I mean, the mental portion of it is huge. And I think that's a lot of things, or that's a big part that some people don't really take into consideration a lot of times, is you have to be mentally into it. You have to be involved in what you're doing with more than just, going to the gym. You have to be completely aware of what's going on, inside and outside. And I think that helps with a lot of, as far as decision making, say if you don't go to the gym that day or things, along that line.
Yeah, there's a lot of that desire, especially now, with social media, with technology, with Amazon Prime, things coming in 2 days. If I get something shipped to me and it takes 2 or 3 weeks, like, why does it take so long? Why is it so? And, I can call you in 2 seconds. You can text, you can FaceTime. It tends to bleed over into wanting everything else quick. Was there anything in particular that drove you to think that way? Or do you think it's just how you grew up with things as they were in society? Because, people are commenting in the, on Facebook and online that because of today's age in society that everyone's looking for a quick fix. Like, do you see that with a lot of your friends? Do you see that as part of just society, or is it just maybe like I don't know, maybe an ingrained human thing that we want things now?
I think one of the things, a lot of it stems from just, your surroundings as well. You see everybody else, or you see these people that, oh, it took them a month and, they made these huge changes, or, something along that lines. I think you're so exposed to all this stuff all the time that you just assume that's how it works for everybody.
Especially on Instagram or something,
And,
you can have a massive transformation. Just say, oh, it took 3 months, or it took, you know how people exaggerate. They'll say, oh, it was 3 months. It might have taken them 6, or it took them 5 when it really took them 7. They just 5 sounded better. You look at all these pictures of people that have the end result, not to mention you can edit pictures and edit videos and change the filters. It makes you feel like you want it now or yesterday. And in your area, maybe you saw some people that were in shape or some people this, that, and the other. But when you go online, you see every single person in the world that is physically fit just because you type in a hashtag and it just concentrates all that on your phone. I mean, it's gotta be a struggle when you don't have what you want. And you do see that, and you see it kind of tricks you into thinking that everyone's getting it a lot easier than you. What am I doing wrong? And that's, I would think, how a lot of people get fully discouraged when they think they're doing something wrong, when it's not wrong. It's just a step on their journey.
And I think that's one of my biggest changes since joining, the community is that mindset of, this isn't a 1 month thing. This isn't a 1 year thing. This is progress over, your entirety. And I think that's what's helped me the most, far as staying consistent and actually focusing on the recovery portion and not just beating myself down to try to get a result when I know I need to take care of my body just as much as anything else.
For sure.
And
yeah.
With my knees being something I struggled with for so long, well, that's something that's always been holding me back from hitting what I want. So, maybe that's something I need to focus on more. And I think that's been one of the biggest changes out of all that I've gotten from this.
So let's just go over a little bit. What have you, rather than go into like all the details of, what we do in Swolenormous X, but your personal experience, what were the components of what you implemented in terms of like the training, in terms of the nutrition, in terms of the mindset? You touched on a couple of those things already. But where are you right now with your health? Where are you right now with your pain, with your X, Y, and Z? Where are you with your health and your fitness now? And what were the biggest changes? Let's just go over that again. What were the biggest changes, or the things that you changed, or the things that you implemented that made the difference from, okay, you were kind of on this yo-yo up and down roller coaster, struggling, kind of going back and forth, tug of war.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Like we were talking, the biggest change I would say for me is my pain. And I would say one of the biggest contributors to that would have to be instituting yoga and stuff in my, weekly programming. I've seen such a difference in, mobility, flexibility, and just, and I've actually, I've sent you a message before about with my ankle. I was having issues with my ankle there for a while. I would say it was probably upwards of a year of it just always hurt. Like walking on it just always caused problems. And I finally started the primer week, and like after a week of the primer week and started doing the yoga, it was gone. And I haven't had it since. I used to have problems where my hips would kind of tighten up, and they would like lock, and it would just hurt to walk, and I haven't had those in months. I think, focusing on the yoga and properly stretching and proper warm-ups and stuff before my workouts, I think it's been one of the biggest changers. And I'm sure, the diet, and I've drastically changed my diet from what it used to be. Everything's grass-fed beef, sweet potatoes, all, big changes. And I think, that has a lot to contribute to it as well. And I think what has kept me on this path so much more is, I've lost some weight, and I'm still, planning on losing more. It's kind of a slow process, but the shape that I've taken is way more drastic than I've ever seen any other program I've done.
That's something that I've been pushing extremely hard lately. A little bit extra is the yoga and the mobility aspect of it. And what a lot of people don't understand, which you have learned through implementation, is that the yoga and the mobility, people think, oh, you're just moving through different ranges of motion, or you're doing these stretches. But what yoga does, and what these types of activation sessions do, is that they don't just move. the body. They don't just, it's not stretching, it's also activation. It's also glute activation. It's also turning on the muscles that need to be turned on in order to keep your body in a better posture. So if you have, which I'm sure it is, better posture and better joint alignment, you're going to be in a better position to move in general, to do any kind of bending down, squatting, just living your life, let alone exercise. So by warming up properly, you're turning on the right muscles and you're aligning your body more. And by doing yoga and doing mobility work, you are turning on the muscles that need to be turned on. You're doing all the things that will prepare your body to be able to receive the stress you're going to put on it from your training. And that's what a lot of people don't get. They think of yoga as stretching. I'm trying to get people away from that. I'm trying to get, like, what can you add to what I mentioned, or what can you add from your perspective and your personal experience with yoga? Because it's one thing for me to say, do yoga. Yoga's amazing. A lot of dudes don't fucking do yoga. I think I'm out in Iowa, I don't think there's a ton of guys doing yoga either. It's such a different approach. It's so classically thought of, oh, that's a chick thing. That's what girls do. Like, what else can you say that will shake people out of this? I don't want to do yoga. Yoga's not for me. Yoga doesn't have a place with strength training. I mean, what else can you say about it that might convince someone who is listening to my podcast in general and being like, that guy just, I don't know, he's just trying to sell a yoga program, or I don't know. Like, what else can you add to that? Because it's such a game changer. And it just saying that over and over again, it just kind of becomes background noise. I just can't talk highly about it enough. So what else can you say about yoga that has changed, or that you can maybe, you're speaking to other people, not just speaking to me, you're speaking to the entire Swolenormous Nation that's listening that might be on the fence with yoga?
I would say one of the biggest things I could add to that is the differences I noticed is just lifting in general. I went from, because I've done, when I used to lift before I joined this, I would stretch and do that stuff. And, I try to stretch regularly and that kind of things. But one of the biggest differences I noticed was with my squat. I went from being able to barely half rep, plates to I can, deep squat 225 pounds now with no pain, and there's no tightness there. And I feel like, since I've been doing yoga, that's been the big change with that. I've noticed little things that I can do that used to cause pain that don't, or that used to, I be restricted or anything along those lines that I don't feel anymore. And I think that's the biggest thing. If somebody, I know it's not the typical man thing to do, but you want to get better at lifting or whatever, this just progresses that more. I mean, it's like a tool just as much as any other bar or any dumbbell in the gym. This is just another tool to progress you in your lifting career or whatever you plan on doing.
If that doesn't encourage everyone, especially the guys, to jump on yoga, and I've been mentioning that a lot too, so I'm really glad that you brought that up. If you tell someone that, hey, if you do this, it's going to help you lift more, it's going to help you get stronger, it's going to help you, everyone be like, oh shit, I want to do more of that. And that's what everyone's trying to do anyway. You want to get, if you're trying to get in better shape and you want to look better, you want to feel better, you want to be stronger, you have to do the exercises with the right form. And when you are balanced properly, when you have better posture, when you have the right muscles activated, you can work the muscles you want to work during the moves. Like when you're doing, obviously you said you don't have pain. What have you felt during the squat specifically that, aside from the pain, are you feeling it different in the muscles? Are you just feeling like, how's your squat feel aside from not having knee pain, which is no small thing, which is freaking phenomenal? Like, what else have you noticed in terms of maybe muscle activation, if anything stands out?
Well, and that's as far as, like you mentioned, activation, as far as with the squat, I mean, I feel it differently as well. It's not all, I can tell big difference from it not being, quad dominant or hamstring dominant. I mean, I actually feel it in the glutes, and it's kind of a weird feeling because you all of a sudden you squat one day and you start feeling it in different ways than you've ever felt before.
You're like, am I doing it right? Like, man, this is what a squat is. This is what it's all about.
Supposed to hurt this bad?
For sure, man. Yeah, that's exactly right. When you're doing, I mean, people always ask me, is deadlifts for back, is squats for quads? I mean, in my opinion, you should never be doing squats for quads. Your quads are going to work. They're there to help extend the knee. Your hamstrings are going to work. They're there to help, bend the knee and extend the hip. But the glutes are there to do all the hip work. If you're doing something with the hips, your glutes have to be working number one. I mean, especially if you're trying to do a compound movement like a squat, like a deadlift, like an already Romanian deadlift or a lunge. You know, how many people do lunges and you feel it? I don't know. Maybe you felt that before. I'm not sure if you were practicing lunges, because if you had knee problems, you probably avoided that. That's really intensive on knee placement, but a lot of people do lunges and the next day they feel really, really sore, but they feel sore in their hamstrings. They feel sore like under their butt, not in the glutes. I'm like, if you're not feeling those exercises in your glutes, your body is telling you that you're not doing it right, because it should be either, yeah, I'm a little bit sore in my hamstrings, I'm a little bit sore in my quads, and your glutes either feel fine or they feel sore because they took the brunt of that. I mean, they're strong muscles and you got to turn them on. But that was likewise the biggest thing that I found when I started doing yoga and mobility and activation, was just everything that I do, all the exercise I did for legs, the stress shifted. And plus you get stronger because your glutes are a stronger muscle and they start firing more, they're lifting more, and all of a sudden your strength goes up and you have less pain. And it's like, oh my God, I just got literally, you almost feel like you kind of slip the system a little bit, because you all of a sudden you have all these massive improvements and less pain. You're like, man, I'm going to keep on doing more of this. So if we can get more guys to do yoga and just bait them by saying, look, you're going to get stronger and you get better muscle development, sold. I mean, that's what it's all about. I don't think you have to tell too many people more than that.
Oh, for sure. And like I've mentioned before, you know, this time around I'm the same weight I am now that I was the last time when I first started kind of getting into weights. But aesthetically, it's completely different, and I'm sure part of that has to do with, you know, the yoga practice and a lot of the other things I'm beginning, you know, to implement.
Absolutely. I mean, your diet, your nutrition. You mentioned a couple of things that you're eating. Obviously, you're on that grass-fed beef tip. You got the sweet peats going. You know, the standard. Did you actually go through an elimination, or did you just kind of like switch over to all these foods and found out they worked pretty well for you and kind of doing it as you go?
I wouldn't say I did like the full, but I eliminated, you know, a lot of items.
Right.
You know, I eliminated mostly grains, you know, dairy, a lot of the big basic ones.
Mm-hmm. So when you eliminated, because I've been also pushing on those two things particularly, because it's very challenging from my aspect to tell people, you know, cut this out, because the idea is that it's restrictive. Oh, I'm not gonna be able to eat these things. I'm not going to be like a parent is scolding you. You can't have grains. You can't be eating dairy. What did you notice when you got rid of them? Was there like a certain, like, wow, I feel better right away? It was over time. What was your physical response to getting rid of those things when you did?
I did. Well, I noticed, you know, a lot of the bloating and that kind of stuff went away. And yeah. I noticed that was when the first kind of surge of kind of pounds started dropping. I noticed when I got rid of a lot of that stuff. That was kind of my first surge, you know, to start noticing them 5-10 pound increments there for a while.
What about pain?
But I know, what's that?
I know it's kind of hard to isolate, and, you know, because you're doing a bunch of stuff at the same time. You're doing yoga, you're cutting out those things. Did you notice, or would you attribute any of it to like pain? Did you feel that you didn't have as many aches along with that type of stuff when you worked on the diet and nutrition? I know it's hard to because a lot of those things cross over. It's hard to isolate.
Yeah, and then that's, I would say, probably the hard part, since this all kind of started, you know, all at once. I started, you know, instituting a better diet, instituting the yoga, the stretch, you know, the correctiveness, all of, you know, kind of all at the same time. So I'm sure it all had, you know, in part with pain and aches and normal things like that.
How did your family or your friends? This is another big one, especially when it comes to diet and nutrition, because food, as we all know, is super, super social. You know, everything, every holiday, every engagement, every time you hang out, there's something around drinks or food or some kind of meal. How did your immediate circle, people that you spend time with, whether it's family, friends, significant others, how did that work out, or what conflicts or what type of struggles, challenges, whatever it is? Let's just talk a little bit about that, what you went through in terms of changing over to this style, because it sounds like you kind of just navigated how you felt you wanted to do it. It doesn't seem or sound like you had a ton of outside resistance, or you were maybe just, you know, cutting it out, which is great. But what was your experience with that, especially with the diet aspect?
I mean, at first, yeah, a little bit of a kind of, okay, where did this kind of come from, just out of the blue.
Yeah.
But in a sense, it doesn't help when I've been up and down with everything under the sun before that. So you kind of get that initial reaction of, okay, this is just the next thing. But I think after, you started seeing the changes and started seeing that, okay, I'm doing this. This is my thing now. I'm committed to this. I've received a ton of support. I mean, everybody's supporting me, as much as possible, help me out any way they can. So, I mean, honestly, I've been really lucky in that aspect.
That's fantastic. Have you brought anyone? Have people started coming up to you asking questions, like they see because a lot of times when you put your head down and focus on you and focus on your shit and what you're doing, like you mentioned, people come around, and I totally understand that. Everyone's going to think, oh, it's just the next thing he's trying to do. Oh, he's cutting carbs now. Oh, he's now cutting dairy. And now he's doing yoga. Now, okay, it's the next fad. But when you stick to it and you're resilient and then you start seeing improvements and everyone else starts noticing improvements, then not only do they support you, but then they start to come and ask you questions. Like, have you had people asking you, well, what are you doing for this? Or how come you're doing that, in terms of their own personal health?
Yeah, a little bit. I would say probably one of the biggest ones is my wife really started actually recently jumping on board big time. She's been going to the gym with me, every day now, or, every day we go, has been trying to, clean up some of the stuff as well. So, I mean, I would say that was probably one of the biggest ones from the start of this, is actually just kind of, and I think a lot of that is somebody sees you doing something or, sees the changes, and then instead of trying to force anything on somebody or, whatever, it's kind of like, people start getting curious, I think. And then, okay, well, what about this? And then, you get into it and you start seeing it yourself, and then it sticks. I mean, that's.
Yeah. It's hard when there's someone in your house. Did you have any kind of conflict because maybe she wasn't on it, or were you just focused on your own thing and maybe in the back of your head you knew her, like she'll come around, she'll start to, or were you just really focused on your own stuff? Did you have any kind of back and forth based on what you wanted to eat and, maybe what she was cooking or where you were going?
First,
Yeah. Go ahead.
At first it was just, I mean, it was kind of something I first found it, I just started, so it was kind of just me doing it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's, everybody does their own thing, and I get that. And I first, I kind of, you try to do that where you kind of force it on a little bit. Oh, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. And I think eventually, you just realize that that's not going to get you anywhere. It's just like anybody that receives a hostile response. It's not going to go anywhere. Yeah. And so I just kind of let it go. And then it just seemed like all of a sudden, eventually now, this is kind of an us thing. This is what we do together. This is kind of our thing.
I think it's also probably in part when you first started, you didn't even know it was going to work as well as it did. I mean, you started kind of doing all this around when you joined, you started doing yoga and you started cutting out these things. I mean, at first, I think it's almost, you have to earn it yourself. And then once it's been proven and once you, and everyone else sees it, like your wife and people around you, then it's like you have a track record. You have something that you can show. You have evidence of the success, and that speaks for itself. You don't have to convince others. You don't have to, be pushing it on other people, so to speak. But it's definitely a huge shift. It's a lot of the things that I guess gets a bad reputation when we talk about the word diet. Diet sounds like it's restrictive. You're eliminating things. These are a lot of negative associated words that, well, on the surface will seem to maybe stress people out. But what could you, I guess, what advice would you have, or do you have, for someone that's listening to these podcasts, for someone that might be even brand new to Swolenormous X, or just hearing the word elimination diet, or, oh, I can't eat bread, or I shouldn't be having pizza or pasta, or, oh man, I'm not drinking milk anymore. What can you say to someone that is hearing that maybe for the first time, or has heard that elsewhere and is very skeptical about that approach?
I would say the biggest thing is you got to start. And I know you've mentioned that, a million times, but it is true. And you can't be afraid to try something out. And I think that's one of the biggest things that, I've learned in this is, you can't be afraid to like, okay, well, let me see if this works. And you try it out for a while, and if it doesn't, then okay, you tweak it a little bit and find out what does work. And the diet part is huge. It's hard. It's kind of daunting at times because everybody's like, well, I don't want to give up this. I don't want to give up that. And and I've been the same way. I've had that a lot in my life, but I think it's the fact of, since I've changed my diet and since you start trying this for a little bit, just try it for a month. And then all of a sudden you're going to feel better. And it's going to be hard to go back. And you start feeling those changes and you start seeing the differences. And another big change I've seen too is just getting up in the morning. I have to get up early for work, and that used to be a 15-minute ordeal to actually get awake. Now it's like 2 minutes. I'm not groggy, and I'm ready to go for the day. And that's another big change. It's just feeling better and your day going easier for you. It's worth all the junk food in the world.
Sounds like you're sleep. Sounds like you're getting more quality sleep too. If you're waking up really easily, that's a really good sign that you're getting more quality sleep. Like your sleep quality, the actual time that you are sleeping has improved. Is that something that you've noticed in particular?
What's that?
Is the sleep quality? What I was mentioning is you said you don't have that ordeal where you're waking up and feeling groggy and like dragging ass in the morning. Would you say, because one of the things with nutrition is that you will actually not just there, how should I say this? A lot of people will ask, well, is it true? How much should you sleep a night? And that's not really necessarily the right question, whether it's 5 hours, 6 hours, 7, 8, or 9, or 10. It's what that sleep exists, like how the quality of that sleep is. Because if you're waking up every 15 minutes, you're tossing and turning, you're in bed for 7 or 8 hours, but you're not really getting quality sleep. So would you say that you've noticed that your sleep quality has actually improved? Like when you're actually sleeping, you just feel more rested in general?
Yeah, I've definitely noticed a big difference with my sleep. And it was just, and it's kind of weird because in a sense, it's like I could stay up. I know, say, you need a lot, your 8 hours or whatever, but I feel like I could stay up like a little later. Like I don't feel like I'm crashing at like 6 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock at night.
Yep.
I can stay up till 9, 10. And when I do wake up in the morning, I don't feel like I've gotten an hour of sleep. I feel like I go to sleep and I'm quality of sleep all night long, and I wake up and I'm just ready to go. And that's before, I feel like I was crashing at say 7 and I'd still sleep for 8, 9 hours, 10 hours, and I'd wake up and I would just feel like I'm dragging.
And that's something that what you mentioned before we talked about sleep, you were saying how, you have these ups and downs and you have to adjust along the way. Nutrition is not a static thing. Your foods might shift or your dietary habits might change as you change your exercise output or, your work schedule. And I'm sure you're adjusting and you're learning. And what can you tell people? Because I like to lead with nutrition is a practice. Yoga, as you well know, is a practice. When you first started yoga, you probably felt like a baby deer. You're shaking everywhere, you're twisting, you're falling, but you practice and you get better. So there's no competition except with yourself. And it's not even a competition. You're just practicing like you're practicing an instrument. What would you say in regards to my statement of nutrition being a practice? How would you respond to that concept?
So as far as nutrition as a practice?
In terms of, let's say, because I've said that several times on the podcast, I like to think of nutrition as a practice because it's not a static thing that never changes. People, a lot of times, they pick a diet. Let's say it's vegan. Let's say it's paleo. Let's say it's keto. And you get this almost ideological kind of like religious zealotry where they feel like they have to find their solutions based on what they chose. It's kind of like you attach your ego to it. And this is where a lot of people that go towards or try veganism, because let's say, for example, they want to protect animals and they love it. Which is fine, which is absolutely fine. Someone's decision. But then they feel like every single solution for their health or for moving forward has to be within those guidelines. But maybe the answer isn't within those guidelines. Maybe the answer for you isn't paleo. Maybe it's more keto based. It's kind of like this ever moving bullseye where if you're focused on the right endpoint. You're focused on your personal health and what makes you perform optimally. If you think of nutrition more as a practice and more as something that is dynamically changing and can dynamically change, and you can add and try, if you don't feel like stuck into a box, it makes things a lot easier to accomplish. I just don't think that diet should be this black and white thing. It's your life and how you approach it. So what's your response to the concept that nutrition is a practice, not, eat this way, this is how you're supposed to eat, these are the foods for you?
I would have to completely agree with you on that, honestly. I just, from my own experience, I'm not eating the same thing that I was when I first started this. It's just like everything else you do. You gotta, you have to start with something, try it, really kind of become more aware of what's going on or how you're feeling while you're doing it, and tweak little things. I've changed this here and changed this out, and this isn't quite working how I want, but so like I've changed this meal. And like for me, for instance, I think breakfast is one of the hardest things for me, or it's been kind of a struggle for me, because it's always been an issue for me to find something that's, good for me, that's going to keep me full until, my next meal, because, I'm kind of at the subject of my job of when I can eat and kind of stuff like that. And it's always been hard for me to find something that just, works to where I feel good. I feel, nourished and on for the day. And I've had to try little things, different things, change this until I finally found something that stuck and that works. And, that's what I do now. And so then you got to take every little thing. And so I completely agree with that. It's not a here, this is what you have to do, just do it. It's very, okay, well, let's start with something, and now you need to see what's going to work the best for you. And I think because of changing my diets and doing things, that I'm a lot more self-aware of how things affect me. I can tell when I've had something that maybe shouldn't have. I mean, I can feel it, and sometimes you can almost physically see it, right after it happens.
Well, do you have any like examples of something like after you eliminated, let's say, grains and dairy or whatever else you eliminated? Do you have any like a specific memory of what you had and the unfortunate result?
Well, like for example, sweets was a big thing for me for a while. It was always kind of my vice, and I was off of those for. Completely just got rid of all of it. Didn't touch anything for probably a solid 4 months. And then one time, I decided to have something, and it was like an instant regret.
Yeah. Stomach
cramps. I felt like I was dying the rest of the night. It was not good at all.
Yeah. You've had what I would call is, a uniquely kind of up and down journey. So when you have a setback now, your experiences have given you the tools to adjust and adapt, because you've been in worse places. You've been in that lower points. You've been to those periods where you've had a lot of extra weight. You were in pain. So you've come out the other side. Would you, if you could go back, like what would you do differently? Would you change things differently? Would you do things a different way? It's very easy to look back. Of course, hindsight is 20/20, but at the same time, if you go back and change things, you might miss some of the tools that you've accumulated. I mean, this is a very, theoretical question and concept, but what would you change? What would you have done differently, knowing what your journey is today?
I think right off the bat, and I've actually said this quite a few times. I think my biggest thing was if I could go back, say pre-surgery, would be to start instituting more of the yoga to see if maybe that could have fixed something, so I would have never had to have them.
Okay.
I feel like that would have been a big thing because, some of the pain is gone and it fixed some of the stuff having them, but part of me feels like because of the issue and it seemed more of like an alignment problem, if I would have focused on it more back then, that may have been something I never had to have.
Understood, which is possible. I mean, of course, that's just, you never know 100%, but the most important thing is that right now you're not in pain. Right now you're moving great and all that. So at least it wasn't something like a back surgery where you sometimes can really just do more damage than good. A lot of back surgeries should never. There are some professionals out there that say you should never ever have back surgery and that everything can be fixed with movement and with nutrition. And a lot of that is true. A lot of that's being proven with certain, therapies and this, that, and the other. But luckily you came out the other side and you are, in a better place and you're not struggling and dealing with ramifications from that. Quite the opposite. There is something that you said in the last, I think 15, 20 minutes or so, that you said just start. And that's one of the biggest things that holds people back, whether it comes to nutrition, whether it's yoga. And that's usually the response I get when someone even sends me a direct message, for example, on Instagram or somewhere. They'll send me a whole thing asking a question. Let's say, do you think it's better? Like, should I be doing, my friend says that I only need to work out 3 days a week or 2 days a week. And, but then I hear other people saying I should work out 5 or 6 days a week. What do you think is best? And I said, well, the fact that you're asking me this question means you have to just start doing it. 3 days a week consistently is more important than 6 days a week. I'm going to quit after a month. So I don't know, what would you tell someone that is literally putting the cart before the horse? They're thinking about doing yoga. They're hearing you talk about the elimination. How important is it to just start? Like, how can you maybe add to what I try to get across in terms of people just doing it? It's so simple, but at the same time, there's a lot of things at work.
I think the big thing, a lot of people kind of look at that as, okay, I want to start something, I want to do this. And so they ask all the questions. And I guess the biggest thing is you don't have to go in and kill yourself right off the bat. Don't look at this as it's going to just completely obliterate you when you ever decide to start. I know it's sometimes it's hard to get that kind of mindset in place, and there's always an excuse to start tomorrow. And I think that's the biggest thing to just not. I mean, you just can't let that happen. If it's a thought and it is something you want to do, and it's something if it is something you truly want, then you have to start that second, or else you never will. Getting rid of excuses, getting rid of reasons to talk yourself out of going or starting or whatever, they just have to not exist. And I think that the biggest benefit of just getting that first day in is, okay, you're going to feel a little sore and something. Well, you kind of feel it working already. So something's starting. And once you start seeing those first little bit of results, it's really hard to stop. It truly is. It
seems to be in many cases that, let's say you go and you buy a car. Okay, you have whatever, it doesn't matter what the cost of the car is. You go to buy the car, the features, it's going to drive, what it looks like, what it feels like, X, Y, and Z. You go to buy a shirt, even if it's online, you go, okay, I know what a shirt feels like. I know what cotton feels like. I know what it looks like. You're going to put it on and it's going to be a shirt. When you start doing anything with fitness, whether it's yoga, whether it is Swole Enormous X or another fitness program, or you're just going to the gym and changing your lifestyle, there's no guarantee of results. You don't know what you're going to get, and it's all based on your effort and what you put in. So that just starting, like what you said, 100%. And at the same time, it's like this investment of time and this investment, all these different things that you're doing differently with no guarantee of results. What are your thoughts on that? What are your emotions? Because you've literally gone through all these different things where every time you tried something, like one thing that's really commendable, and a lot of people do this, you went through and you failed. However, you failed until you succeeded, which pretty much everyone does that is ever successful. A failure is just something that doesn't work. A failure is something that didn't work. It was one road that didn't lead to where you wanted to go. So then you backtracked and you went down a different road. You're literally going to the unknown. What's your thoughts on that? On literally, it's almost kind of like a leap of faith. It's almost just trusting yourself. But that's another major component psychologically for people getting started.
Yeah, and it is super intimidating too. You're walking in and you don't really know what you're doing at the start because you're still learning. Um, I guess that's the hardest part is just you really have to block pretty much everybody else out at that point. You have to focus on what you're doing, and just don't be afraid to try it. Get out there, start doing something, and you're going to learn along the way. And I think I know way more now than I did from the beginning, but I still started at the beginning, and that's where you have to start. There's always a beginning. And you have to be willing to continue to adapt and willing to learn and continue to, it's no different than having, a job. You always have to learn to keep up with that job. Well, this is kind of the same thing. You're always going to have to adapt. You're always going to have to change things. You're always going to have to be mindful of what you're doing to, improve as you're going.
Absolutely. Well said, man. Well, listen, I'd love to wrap this up. We've been on here for about an hour, which is amazing. I mean, tons of great information, a lot of great feedback for anyone that's watching, listening. What is one piece of advice that you would give? I mean, you kind of just did give it. That was absolute fire. If you missed that last part, make sure you rewind it and play that again. But because you're speaking to other people, you're speaking to thousands of people that are going to be listening to this podcast later on once it's online, what would you like to tell them? Like, what's one thing that you would want to leave everyone with, as they've taken this journey with you and they've heard your story? What's one piece of advice that would, let's just say, get them off their ass or take them to the next level? What's something that you've learned that you want to pass along?
I would have to say the one thing I'd like to tell, everybody is no matter how hard this stuff is, no matter how scary it may seem, no matter any of that stuff, it's definitely going to be worth it in the end. Just a little bit of changes I've had, and I'm by no means perfect, and I still have a long ways to go, but it's given me something that's kind of part of my life now, and it's part of the fulfillment in my life, and it's changed every aspect of my life, and it's so worth all of the the pain and the getting rid of things that you've always said you enjoyed and stuff like that. But once you stick to it and once you get into it, it's worth the changes you'll see for sure.
I could not agree with you more, my man. Your wife was on here earlier, and she says, Tyler stuck to this so well, and I saw so many changes. I jumped on board, and I couldn't be more proud of my husband. Now I would never go back. So you're doing something right, man. And I'm super proud to have you a part of the community. I'm really, truly grateful that you took the time to come on here and share your story, and that you're spreading it. I mean, it's amazing that you following your journey is encouraging and helping other people want to improve their health, from your wife to everyone that's listening. I mean, it makes a big impact. And, it just goes to show that when you focus on doing what's best for you, that it's contagious and it makes other people want to do the best for them. So thank you so much for being here, bro. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You got it, man. I'll follow up with you in a little bit. I'll just wrap up the show, but thank you so much for being here, bro. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.
You got it, Tyler. Take care, man.
Yep, you too. Bye.
Well, there you have it, everyone. Tyler's been a part of the Swolenormous community for about 10 months. Okay. And, through the comments, through the posts, and just the engagement and the interaction that I've seen from him, he's one of those people that I've mentioned before. He's one of those people that have been, I don't want to say in the shadows, but he's one of those people that he's not the most vocal guy in the Swolenormous X community. He's not all out there just, posting, all these pictures and selfies every freaking day. He came in, but obviously, as you heard, he puts in the fucking work. And it's what I mentioned, I forget, the other day, or it was on an Instagram post or something. I feel like everything that I do, whether it's a podcast or a post or like the copy under the Instagram post, the caption, it's one big conversation. So I forget where I post these things or where we have this where I said this, but it's usually those people that are quiet. It's usually the people that do the fucking work and don't blab about it. You don't have to announce to the world. He went through all these different series of experiences in his life, right? He went through the period where he was in pain, surgery, where his weight ballooned and he lost weight, but not the right way, and kind of went back up. And he had this tug of war. And I'm sure a lot of that was done internally, right? The people around him, oh, that's just Tyler trying another thing. Oh, he's just trying to get rid of this now. Oh, that's the latest fad. But he put his head down and did it anyway. The naysayers, people that might have chided him and made fun of him or teased him or been like, oh, you're just trying something else. He wanted the result. And how many times during this whole conversation with him explaining his experience, how many times did he have an opportunity to give up and quit? Literally every single one of those days until he had that kind of light bulb moment, literally every day, he had the chance to quit. He had the chance to not go back. He had the chance to not do it. He had the chance to give up. He had the chance to stop. But he didn't. And just like he said, start. It's going to be worth it in the end. And if you go into this whole fitness game, it's really hard to call it a fitness game. It's really hard to call it a nutrition game. It's your life. It's just literally your life. There's no other way to explain it. It's not a time period. It's not you're trying this new scheme you're developing. It's your life. So as you go through your life, you're going to fail. Going to fail. No doubt, no question about it, you're going to fail. But are you going to get back up? Are you going to keep on moving? Are you going to readjust your target, gather the troops up, and get back on the fucking pony? Like, what are you going to do next? Don't think whether or not you will fail. Just don't have expectations of anything in particular. Get rid of those expectations and focus on what you're doing now to make tomorrow better. What are you doing now? What are you doing today? Are you working on mobility today? Are you going to shop and you're going to buy better foods? Are you going to eat clean? Are you going to drink enough water? Are you going to go do your workout? Are you going to get some good sleep? Are you going to spend time with the people that you care about? Are you not going to make, what decisions are you making today? What do you think that Tyler did and Tyler still does? What do you think people that are successful do, especially when it comes to fitness and nutrition? You don't look at 3 months, 6 months, 10 months. You don't see this over the course of 5 years. These are all just bricks that have been laid down day after day. So in the 10 months that Tyler has been a part of the Swolenormous X family, in the 5, 6, 7, 8 years that he's been on this, since his surgeries and whatnot, every single day is a brick. Every single day is a brick that you're laying down. And if you understand how walls are strong, or how a building, how a structure is designed, you want that foundation. You want every single one of those bricks to be strong, because a chain, let's talk about a chain. You might have heard this analogy before. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So you can have 5, 6, 7 links in a chain that are made of cast iron or steel, just the strongest. And then you have one that's made of wood. That chain's not going to be worth shit. It's going to break right away. So it's only as strong as the weakest brick, as the weakest link in the chain. And that doesn't mean that if you have one bad day, your whole shit's going to fall down, but it's a risk. You have one bad day, it's a risk to set you back. It's a risk psychologically. It's a risk for your reasoning. Human beings, we have to be relentlessly strong because our mind wants to relapse. Our body wants to go naturally, wants to go to the path of least resistance. Your body wants to go towards least resistance. Your body doesn't want to go through fucking hell, fire, and just struggle. But that's what causes you to come out the other side stronger. That's what leads you to come out the other side a better person, a stronger person, a more developed person. And honestly, as much as Tyler's gone through some fucking shit in his life, it has created this resolve and this understanding that, just because I have a low moment or a low time period or something goes wrong, all I have to do is X, Y, and Z and keep going, and I'll see more progress. So those experiences, as much as he might, go back in the past and redo the yoga, I'm sure he doesn't regret, as he mentioned, he doesn't regret the struggle aspect of all of it. He just wishes, maybe I tried yoga earlier, so I would have avoided surgery, as most people probably would have answered. But those struggles, the challenges, that's what has created the resolve that he has today to keep on going, to keep his head focused, and to keep on starting. Just do it. It's worth it in the end. Just keep on moving forward. And that's the journey, fam. That's the journey. It's not complicated. It's not always luxurious. It's not always sexy. It's not going to be easy, but it's something that you have to do. It's your life. Unless you plan on dying tomorrow, this is something that you need to lay down every day in order to live the most fulfilled life, something without pain, that in which you can do what makes you happy, right? Whether or not that is fitness and that's your world, whether or not you love to do other types of things, travel, you like hiking, you like any other kinds of activity, painting, woodworking, right? I would use those examples. Whatever it is, you want to be healthier. You want to give your body the right fuel. You want your body to not be in constant pain. And it just takes those daily activities. What you're eating plays a role. What you're doing physically plays a role. Where your mindset is at plays a role. It's all tied in together. It's not separate. It's all part of the same system. So I hope if you're just tuning in now, make sure you listen to this podcast. I'll get this up ASAP, but make sure that you plug in, make sure you check out this podcast, listen, tune in, and pay attention, because it's not coming from my mouth. You have heard this before from other members I've had on the podcast, people that literally have gone through the same struggles that you maybe are facing yourself. And this is how you can overcome them. This is what needs to be done in order to push yourself forward. So again, thank you so much to Tyler. That was an amazing fucking conversation. Really good dude, and a lot of hard work and a lot of struggle that a lot of you have experienced as well. And it's just, another brick, just laying down those bricks, just absolutely laying down those bricks. So thank you again, everyone, for joining me for episode 995 of the Most Muscular Swolecast, Beercast, Broadcast, Gamecast, Mancast, Pimpcast, Sleazecast, and Slaycast in the realm, because when I flex, you flex. We all flex our biceps. And if you're not yet subscribed to the podcast, please, it would make me so very happy if you would subscribe. Make sure you go to swolenormousx.com. You can click on podcasts and check out all the links for all the different apps the podcast is on. If you have not yet left a review on iTunes for the Daily Swole podcast, I would absolutely love one. I really appreciate everyone that takes the time to go leave a review. It truly helps the podcast get some more exposure, so thank you for that. And if you are not yet checking out the Gain Train blog, there's going to be a brand new workout tomorrow, Sunday, so make sure you check out the Gain Train blog on swolenormousx.com for some workouts and additional nutritional content. And of course, swolenormousx.com has all the nutrition programs, training, yoga classes, all that stuff. You can just check out everything, all those links I mentioned, swolenormousx.com. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow for Sunday Fun Day Q&A. So I will drop that post right now on Instagram and Facebook, so you can start dropping your questions for tomorrow's live Q&A. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you tomorrow for 996 of the Daily Mother Swole. Peace, McGeese, deuce, Magoose, your boy, Papa Swole, out.